There's a quiet frustration that many people carry every day, a subtle but persistent sensation in the throat that never fully clears, a feeling as though the body is holding on to something it no longer needs. Phlegm is often treated as an enemy, something to suppress or force away, yet biologically it is a messenger. It is produced for protection, for moisture, for defense, and when it becomes excessive or stubborn, it is rarely the problem itself, but rather a signal of imbalance. The throat sits at the crossroads of breathing, digestion, and immunity, and when phlegm accumulates there, it is often reflecting how gently or harshly we are treating these systems. From a physiological perspective, mucus is regulated by the respiratory lining, hydration levels, inflammatory signals, and the nervous system's stress response. When the body senses irritation, dryness, acid reflux, allergens, or chronic inflammation, it increases mucus production as a shield. Permanently reducing phlegm, therefore, is not about drying the throat, but restoring the conditions in which excess mucus is no longer needed. Adequate hydration changes the structure of mucus itself, making it thinner and easier to clear, while proper nasal breathing warms and filters the air before it reaches the throat, reducing defensive overproduction. Digestion plays a quieter but powerful role. When the stomach struggles to empty efficiently or acid travels upward, even subtly, the throat responds defensively. This response often occurs without classic heartburn, creating what feels like unexplained phlegm. Supporting digestion through slower eating, consistent meal timing, and calm parasympathetic activation allows the throat to relax its protective output. At the same time, chronic mouth breathing, often driven by nasal congestion or habit, dries the throat and paradoxically increases mucus as compensation. Inflammation, whether from environmental exposure, smoking, air pollution, or persistent low-grade infection, signals mucus-producing cells to remain active. The immune system does not forget easily, and when irritation becomes habitual, mucus becomes habitual too. Gentle anti-inflammatory support through nutrition, rest, and breathing patterns gradually teaches the tissues that constant defense is no longer required. The nervous system is central here. A stressed body stays guarded, while a calm body conserves energy and reduces unnecessary secretions. Over time, the throat learns from consistency. When hydration is stable, breathing is nasal and slow, digestion is supported, and inflammation is reduced, mucus production naturally downshifts. The body is remarkably efficient when it feels safe. Removing phlegm permanently is not about forceful clearing, but about creating an internal environment where excess mucus no longer serves a purpose and therefore quietly fades away. Phlegm is often perceived as a nuisance, something to be forcefully expelled or suppressed, yet at its core it is a protective response, a signal that the body is communicating rather than failing. The respiratory system produces mucus to trap particles, pathogens, and irritants, to keep delicate tissues moist, and to support immune surveillance. When this protective layer becomes excessive or persistent, it is rarely the phlegm itself that is the problem. It is the underlying conditions that the body is responding to. The throat sits at the intersection of breathing, digestion, and immune defense, and the presence of mucus often reflects subtle imbalances in one or more of these systems. Chronic irritation from environmental factors such as dust, pollution, or allergens can trigger a consistent defensive response. Similarly, even mild digestive disturbances or acid reflux can stimulate mucus production as the throat anticipates potential harm. The nervous system also plays a role, as stress can amplify defensive responses, making the body more vigilant and prompting increased secretion. Understanding phlegm as a biological message shifts the perspective from suppression to curiosity and care. It encourages an approach where the focus is on identifying and addressing the root causes rather than forcing the body to remove what it has produced for protection.
When this protective response is respected and supported through gentle interventions such as maintaining hydration, reducing irritants, and supporting digestion, the body can recalibrate its mucus production naturally. Over time, persistent phlegm diminishes not because it is attacked or dried out, but because the conditions that called for its presence are resolved. By seeing phlegm as a signal rather than a problem, we align with the body's intelligence, fostering a deeper understanding of how protective systems operate and how they can be harmonized for long-term throat health. Hydration and nasal breathing are fundamental regulators of mucus production, and yet they are often overlooked when addressing persistent phlegm. The body produces mucus as a protective barrier, but its consistency and quantity are directly influenced by how well tissues are hydrated. When the throat and respiratory tract are dry, mucus becomes thicker, stickier, and more difficult to clear, which can create the sensation of constant congestion. Adequate fluid intake ensures that mucus maintains a thinner, more fluid consistency, allowing it to move smoothly along the respiratory lining and be naturally cleared without irritation or excessive coughing. Nasal breathing complements this process by conditioning the air before it reaches the throat and lungs. The nasal passages warm, humidify, and filter incoming air, reducing irritation to the delicate tissues of the pharynx. When breathing occurs primarily through the mouth, the air bypasses these protective mechanisms, drying the throat and triggering the body to produce more mucus as a compensatory defense. This cycle can perpetuate chronic phlegm, creating discomfort that feels unending. By consciously practicing nasal breathing and maintaining steady hydration, the respiratory system receives support that aligns with its natural protective strategies. Over time, these habits help the body regulate mucus production efficiently, reducing unnecessary buildup while still preserving its defensive capabilities. This approach emphasizes balance, showing that the throat doesn't need to be forced or artificially cleared. Instead, the environment is optimized so the body can maintain homeostasis. Thinner mucus, proper airway conditioning, and gentle support of the tissues create conditions where excess mucus is no longer necessary, allowing the throat to remain clear naturally while still preserving its innate protective function and resilience against irritants and pathogens. Digestive function plays a surprisingly powerful role in the production of throat phlegm, even when there are no obvious signs of heartburn or discomfort. The esophagus and stomach are closely connected to the throat through neural and chemical pathways, and subtle disruptions in digestion can trigger defensive responses in the respiratory system. When the stomach struggles to empty efficiently, or when acid or digestive enzymes occasionally rise into the esophagus, the throat interprets these signals as potential irritation. Even mild or silent reflux can provoke increased mucus production as the body prepares a protective barrier to shield delicate tissues from harm. Over time, this response can become chronic, leaving the throat coated with phlegm that seems unexplainable. Eating habits significantly influence this process. Large, rapid meals or irregular meal schedules can exacerbate digestive stress, creating a persistent signal that the throat perceives as threat. Similarly, foods that irritate the stomach or esophagus may indirectly contribute to excess mucus as part of the body's defensive strategy. Supporting digestion through mindful eating, slower chewing, smaller portions, consistent meal timing, and attention to food tolerance reduces these irritations and allows the throat to relax its protective output. At the same time, chronic mouth breathing, often driven by nasal congestion or habit, dries the throat and paradoxically increases mucus as compensation. The nervous system also mediates this connection, as stress or anxiety can slow gastric emptying and heighten sensitivity in the throat, reinforcing mucus production. By addressing digestive health, we are not attacking the mucus directly, but gently resolving the triggers that prompt its excess. The body then gradually reduces unnecessary secretion, allowing the throat to clear naturally. Over time, this approach encourages a harmonious relationship between digestion and respiratory defense, showing that chronic phlegm is not simply a respiratory problem, but a signal reflecting the systemic health of the digestive and nervous system working together to protect and maintain the body's well-being. Chronic inflammation and stress are central contributors to persistent phlegm in the throat, often maintaining mucus production long after the initial irritant is gone. Inflammation can arise from environmental exposures, such as dust, pollen, smoke, or pollution, that signal the immune system to remain vigilant. Even low-grade infections or minor irritations can keep mucus-producing cells active, creating a defensive state that feels continuous. The body does not distinguish between constant minor threats and serious ones. It responds to all perceived irritation with protective measures. The nervous system amplifies this response as stress, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, heightens sensitivity and primes the throat for defense. Cortisol and other stress-related hormones influence immune activity and can encourage increased mucus secretion, further reinforcing the cycle of phlegm accumulation. This explains why people under chronic stress often notice a thicker, more persistent coating in the